Well, tonight it's the last of the Farmart Reader Events of the year. We're in Lancashire, we're on a beef farm, but it's a beef farm with a little bit of a difference. They've actually diversified, and on site here they've now got a brewery. So the event tonight is sponsored by Compass Fuels. So they're a fuel company that operates across Lancashire and the northwest of England. So I'm sure we'll be hearing from them later on. But first of all, let's go and have a look around the farm.
Magic. Is that everyone? Yeah? So my name's Danny. Welcome to Farmyard. So we've been going about 8 years now. So the farm we're on is Moss Edge Farm. And Steve, who's the founder of the brewery, it's his family farm. He's the 6th generation to be on here. But as soon as Steve was getting to an age where it was sort of figuring out how he was going to take over the farm and sort of like keep it going essentially. He was soon realised that with the industry, the climate the way it is, there wasn't a lot the farm was doing still. So Bob and Steve were having to leave the farm in order to go and get work, in order to keep the farm going rather than the farm sustaining itself. So which is why Steve was like, we need to sort of diversify what we're doing and make sure we've got some sustainability in terms for the next generation of homes to come through and take over the farm. And at that time, he was doing a bit of home brewing, so it's a hobby that's got very much at hand. It started off with like 1 or 2 tanks, but we'll go through all the brewery in a bit. And now we're at a point where we're brewing about 500,000 litres of beer a year, which is it's good. A lot of beer for not such a big a place, but. Obviously, we're out in the middle of the farm, so we need to make sure that we integrate with the farm and use it as best we can. And also, we do want to sustain the farm and make sure it stays here. We don't want to just knock everything down and just have a brewery in a field. So one of the ways we do that is we've got the cattle here. So at one point, this was a dairy farm. I think back in the 80s, they sold the herd. For years, they never had cattle. But when we're doing the brewing process, we're left with loads of like spent grains, which we'll talk about later. But they're a byproduct of brewing, but they also make great cattle feed. So essentially, these guys are only here to eat all the grains from the brewery. So Bob's now got a herd of cows where he gets free feed, and they get 5 hot meals a week, so they're all happy away. Well, more than that actually. So these will get fed up, and then they'll get sent off, and then Steve has recently started doing an interesting project where he's kept his own herd of cows, well, 1 or 2, I suppose you could really call that a herd, of native shorthorn, and then been feeding them up on the grains as well. And then we've actually been sending them off to slaughter, and then we've been using them in our food vendor. So you've got this really nice close-knit thing where you can have a beer that's brewed here, have a burger that was reared on the beer round the corner with a hot sauce that's made from the beer, and try and keep everything as like close-knit as we can use local suppliers as much as we can, but you can't really get much more local than that, can you? But that's essentially, at the minute, the farm is kind of just a handful of fields that make straw, hay, and then these cows that we keep fed up. But the brewery's now got to the point where the brewery's sustaining the farm rather than the other way around. And then at some point we're going to start, we've got plans in order to grow that herd, and then we can start selling beef out to venues that we sell beer to. Which would be really cool. We've got solar on here now, so 50% of all the energy or the electric that we use in the year is all self-generated. We want to expand that to the point where we can be completely off-grid in terms of electric. We want to look at repurposing some of these buildings, building like a big farm shop where we can host loads of different suppliers, start using local farms and showing off the produce, give everyone one place they can go where they can come get a beer, come and buy the produce, fruit, veg, all that kind of stuff. There's so many great producers around here, but I think because everyone's dotted about, people don't necessarily know about them. So hopefully we can sort of like act as this like hub. That's the farm sort of side of things. So we'll take you back through to the brewery and we'll talk loads of beer at you. But like I say, Steve was doing it as a hobby brewing at home. And whilst he was doing that, he was going out and driving milk tankers at night. Strangely, there's quite a lot of crossover with that, because obviously with your hygiene, sort of like when you're dealing with milk and you're dealing with all these different tanks and vessels, your hygiene with milk's got to obviously be here. With alcohol, you can get away with it a little bit because the alcohol messes it up, but Steve's always kept the hygiene really, really high. So that's been a really useful sort of skill when brewing. One of the sort of biggest advantages we've got here is, compared to a lot of other craft breweries, is space. You go to some craft breweries, they're in archways under railroads in the middle of Manchester or something like that. And anyone that comes here to come and brew with us is always very, very jealous of the amount of space we've got. But what that means is we can run a really, really efficient brew house. So you can see all our tanks are just straight in a line, everything can be linked up. So it means that we've got a very small team here compared to other breweries that brew the same amount of stuff. But little things like, say, Steve purpose built the place so all the floors are sloping down to the drains in the middle, things like that, where you go to some breweries and they're pushing water up a hill kind of thing. So that's one of the that's one of the sort of like biggest advantages we've got, is the space and how we use it.
But after we get our hot liquid, it goes through a heat exchanger and we cool it down and then transfer it into one of these tanks, all of which the lids are closed, have beer in them fermenting or finished fermenting. And it's at that stage that we add the yeast, and that converts all that sugar into alcohol and other fruity flavors. So we've got 4 big tanks. It's pretty much all chaff. So we double brew. They all hold 4,000 litres of chaff, and I think that's probably about a third of what we're currently brewing. It's our best-selling session IPA.
So as well as producing alcohol, the yeast also produces CO2, so help naturally carbonate the beer. So when we're doing cask beer, that's all that natural carbonation that's in there from the CO2. So that's when you get like your nice conditioned pint of cask. That's all from the yeast. Whereas when we're doing keg and can, that's when we force carbonate. So then we'll actually put in at really high high pressures and low temperatures the carbon dioxide, and then we'll force it to be nice and fizzy.
Now we actually get to try the product, so yeah, we'll have a go at this. I'm not normally a beer drinker, but anyway. But it smells really fruity. Actually, yeah, I could get used to that. Maybe I should be now a beer converted drinker.
So I'm David from Compass Fuels. I've really enjoyed this farm walk with the Farmart and Farmyard Brew Car. It's been an absolutely fantastic night. Learned a lot about breweries and had a really good taste of the beer at the end of the night. It's the 5th walk we've done with the Farmart now, and it's been really, really good so far. I think we've won more agriculture clients through the Farmart than any other form of paid advertising that we've ever done. So I do encourage you to get involved. Unless you're a fuel company, then bugger off. That'll be it.